Valentine's Day is one of those special days on the calendar, whether you re-head over heels in love or just enjoying the idea of it. Across the globe, millions celebrate with cards, flowers, chocolates, and sweet, handwritten notes. But have you ever stopped to wonder where all these traditions actually come from? Well, get ready, because we're about to take a journey through the fascinating, and sometimes surprising, history of Valentine's Day. Our story begins long before the first heart-shaped box of chocolates. The roots of Valentine's Day trace back to an ancient Roman festival called Lupercalia. This was a wild springtime celebration held in mid-February, honoring fertility and the Roman gods. It involved rituals that were meant to ensure the health of the people and the fertility of the land. When Christianity began to spread throughout the Roman Empire, the church often adapted existing pagan holidays to help encourage followers to join the new faith. Lupercalia was one of them. The celebration was toned down, Christianized, and eventually fixed on February 14th, laying the groundwork for the holiday we know today. So where does the name Valentine come from? The holiday is named after a man who became a martyr for love, Saint Valentine. The most popular legend places him in 3rd century Rome, under the rule of Emperor Claudius II. The emperor had a problem. He needed more soldiers for his army, but he believed that married men were too attached to their families to be good fighters. So he made a drastic decision and banned all marriages and engagements for young men. A Christian clergyman named Valentine thought this was a terrible injustice. In defiance of the emperor's decree, he began secretly marrying couples who were in love. It wasn't long before his actions were discovered, and Claudius II had him arrested and sentenced to death. For his sacrifice in the name of love, Valentine was made a saint, and the day of his execution, February 14th, became forever associated with romance and devotion. Now here's where the story gets a little more complex. It turns out there wasn't just one Saint Valentine. Historical records are a bit fuzzy, but there were actually multiple figures named Valentine who were martyred around the same time. One was a priest in Rome, another was a bishop in Italy, and there are even more stories about a patron saint of lovers. Over the centuries, the legends and stories of these different Valentines all blended together. Their acts of compassion and bravery combined to create the single powerful figure we now associate with Valentine's Day, a symbol of love's enduring spirit. For a long time, though, February 14th wasn't the romantic holiday we know. The person who really connected Valentine's Day with love was the famous English poet Geoffrey Chaucer. Back in the 14th century, he wrote a poem called The Parliament of Fowls. In it, he beautifully described a scene where birds gathered on Saint Valentine's Day to choose their mates. This was one of the first times February 14th was explicitly linked to romantic love in popular culture. Chaucer's poem was a huge hit, and it inspired people, especially in the noble courts, to start celebrating their partners with flowers, poems, and other sweet gifts, planting the seeds for our modern traditions. From poems, we move to cards. The very first recorded Valentine's card was sent all the way back in 1415. It was written by Charles, the Duke of Orleans, to his wife while he was imprisoned in the Tower of London after a battle. He called her his very gentle Valentine. While that original card sadly no longer exists, the oldest surviving Valentine we can still see today is a beautiful, heartfelt love letter from the 15th century. It was written by a woman named Marjorie Bruce to her fiancé, John Paston, calling him her right well-beloved Valentine. It's an incredible piece of history, and you can still see it preserved in the British Library today. Fast forward a few centuries, and Valentine's Day started to look a lot more familiar. It was in 18th century England that the holiday really went commercial. Suddenly, it wasn't just for nobles anymore. People from all walks of life began exchanging printed cards, flowers, and chocolates with their loved ones. This tradition soon sailed across the Atlantic to the United States, where it exploded in popularity. Today, it's a massive industry. In the US alone, nearly 150 million Valentine's cards are exchanged every single year, not including the ones kids share in classrooms. And what's the number one flower for Valentine's Day? Roses, of course, especially red ones. This tradition also has ancient roots, tying back to Roman mythology and the goddess of love, Venus. According to legend, Venus was in love with a handsome hunter named Adonis. When he was tragically killed by a wild boar, Venus rushed to his side crying. Her tears mixed with his blood on the ground, and from that spot grew the very first red roses. Ever since, the red rose has been a powerful symbol of deep, passionate love that endures even through tragedy, making it the perfect flower for Valentine's Day. It's also fun to see how different cultures put their own spin on the holiday. Valentine's Day isn't celebrated the same way everywhere. In Japan, it's the women who take the lead. On February 14th, they give chocolates to the men in their lives, not just romantic partners, but also friends and co-workers. Then, exactly a month later on March 14th, it's the men's turn to reciprocate on a holiday called White Day in South Korea. They celebrate both days, but they also have a day for singles on April 14th called Black Day, where people who didn't receive gifts eat black bean noodles. And in China, the biggest shopping day of the year is November 11th, known as Singles Day, which has become a massive celebration of self-love and treating yourself to gifts. Of course, we can't talk about Valentine's Day without talking about chocolate. The connection is sweeter than you might think. In 1861, a clever chocolatier named Richard Cadbury came up with a brilliant marketing idea. He started selling his delicious chocolates in beautifully decorated heart-shaped boxes, specifically for Valentine's Day. People loved them. Not only did they get tasty treats, but the boxes themselves were keepsakes for storing letters and mementos. The idea was a massive success, and today, Americans buy an astounding 58 million pounds of chocolate in the week leading up to February 14th. Finally, Valentine's Day has become a landmark day for life-changing moments. It's one of the most popular days of the year for marriage proposals. It's estimated that around 6 million couples get engaged on Valentine's Day each year. Another romantic tradition that has popped up around the world is the love lock. Couples write their names or initials on a padlock, attach it to a bridge or fence, and then toss the key into the river below. This symbolic act represents their unbreakable, everlasting love. From ancient Roman festivals and brave saints to heart-shaped chocolates and love locks on bridges, the history of Valentine's Day is a rich and beautiful story of how a day has evolved over thousands of years into the global celebration of love we cherish today. So, whether you're celebrating with a bouquet of red roses, a box of chocolates, or just a simple, heartfelt "I love you," you're part of a tradition that has brought joy and connection to people for centuries. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey through history interesting, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories behind our favorite traditions. See you next time.